Hi, I'm Max, and this is Echoes in the Dark. Tonight, we're telling the story of a cemetery of forgotten souls. Chapter 6, The Return. Daniel didn't sleep the night. He found his own name written in the glowing ink. He sat on the floor of his living room until sunrise, staring at the single, impossible sentence in his notebook. Daniel Hawthorne. Remembered. Not written. Not recorded. Remembered. He couldn't explain why the word chilled him more than anything he'd witnessed inside the cemetery. But it did. Something about it felt permanent, binding, as if the dead had taken something from him simply by inscribing those letters. By the time dawn finally pushed weak light across his window, Daniel had convinced himself it wasn't real. A hallucination, maybe stress, lack of sleep. But when he blinked, the ink still glowed softly, blue like the mausoleum light. The first sign. It started that morning. Daniel stepped into the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and froze. Across the fog mirror were handprints, small ones, too small to belong to an adult, the same size as the little girl in the cemetery. He wiped the glass with trembling fingers. The prints didn't smear. They didn't fade. They simply vanished, like mist evaporating. Daniel stumbled back. His breath fogged in the air though the heater was on. The whisper followed. Soft, childlike. Why did you leave us? He spun around, heart pounding. The room was empty. The second sign. That night, the cemetery followed him again, this time in his dreams. He stood before the mausoleum, except it wasn't the same. It was open wider than ever before, the blue light pouring out like smoke. Margaret stood at the threshold, her hollow eyes glowing faintly. Once the keeper awakens, she whispered, the rest begin to stir. Behind her, Daniel saw shapes, hundreds of them, pressing against the darkness, writhing, reaching. The door was never meant to open, she continued. But you opened it. He tried to speak, but his voice came out as nothing but static. The dead remember you now. The shadows surged toward him. Daniel jolted awake, drenched in sweat. The third sign. The haunting didn't stop in daylight. Objects in his apartment moved when he wasn't looking. Books fell from shelves without sound. Photographs turned themselves face down. And every night, as darkness crept from one room to the next, a soft chorus rose, dozens of voices whispering in unison. Remember us. One evening, the whispers grew louder, pushing at the walls like wind against glass. Daniel clamped his hands over his ears, but the voices weren't coming from outside. They were coming from inside his skull. Why don't you speak our names? Why did you open the door? We won't be forgotten again. Daniel fell to his knees, shaking. When he dared to look up, the shadows in the corners were no longer empty. Dozens of figures stood there, translucent silhouettes, unmoving, staring at him with hollow eyes. Something deep inside Daniel broke. He understood then. The cemetery had not let him leave. It had only followed him home. The terrifying truth. On the sixth night, the little girl returned. She stood in his hallway, her dress dripping with soil, her eyes glowing like blue embers. You're one of us now, she whispered. Daniel backed away until he hit the wall. No, I'm alive. I'm not staying with you. She stepped closer. Her footsteps made no sound. We don't want you dead, she said softly. We want you to remember. The lights in the apartment flickered. The room filled with the blue glow of the mausoleum. Margaret's voice echoed through the air, calm and unyielding. The cemetery was never a burial ground. The shadows swirled around Daniel, encircling him. Margaret's figure appeared, rising out of the floor like mist. It is a memory prison, she said, a place where forgotten souls gather, when no one remains alive who remembers their names. Confusion and dread churned in Daniel's mind. But why me? He whispered. Margaret reached out, her icy fingers brushing his temple. Because you looked, because you listened, because you wrote their names. The little girl's hand slipped into his. You opened the door that keeps us tethered, she said. And now, you're the only one who can close it. Daniel felt the weight of 1,000 souls pressing against him. If I don't, he asked. Margaret's expression darkened. Then every forgotten spirit in this world will come to you. The blue light flared, and Daniel collapsed into darkness. Max speaking from Echoes in the Dark. Stay curious, stay cautious, and stay tuned for the next chapter.